Let's check out the top floor of the Sears. It's probably gonna be empty storage area, but
It could be really vintage.
could be.
Alright, let's do the grades. Factories and power plants, hospitals, theaters. I don't think there's a type of place we haven't been in.
We can scream and no one.
Yeah. There are times when you find that place where you know, like, maybe nobody has been here in decades, and those are the experiences you really remember as an explorer. Stairwell exits.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
One of my favorite buildings is the Buffalo State Hospital. When you drive up the main road, it's like overwhelming of how massive the building is. The towers are huge, it's 4 stories, and the curative effect of the building was incorporated into the architecture. So the building was designed to help the patients.
Look how retro this chair looks down here.
In the United States, there was a huge movement for deinstitutionalization in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And they started downsizing a lot of the inpatient facilities in all kinds of institutions for mental health. Budgets were cut, and they just wanted to have less people under the care of the state. So they started closing down all the older buildings. Look at this. Wonder what that was reading.
Polygraph reading or something?
Something.
EKG.
It's almost surreal. It's like you're stepping back in time, like a window into the past. Museums are viewed through like a curator's vision.
It's like seeing history through a filter, whereas when you see the decay and how this place has remained completely still for decades, it almost closes the gap in time between the history that happened here so long ago and where you are right now.
It's the realest it can be.
To me, the theaters really tie in a lot to urban decay. As city centers started to decline, as wealth left and went towards the suburbs, that's when you saw these once grand and opulent theaters just lose their customer base and fall into disrepair and become abandoned.
If it was vaudeville or even just early cinema, it was supposed to be impressive. And all of them are kind of related in their story, how there was tons and tons of theaters. Even in the smallest towns in America, there were grand theaters. But with the popularity of the multiplex, they started all closing, and a lot of them have been lost.
I've sort of become the industrial specialist. Power plants specifically, it really took me aback at first, because you expect a power plant to be a completely utilitarian place. Like, it's here to make electricity and that's it. But I was really shocked to find how ornate some of the architecture was, and extreme amount of craftsmanship put into them that you just would not expect. Deindustrialization and suburbanization are like the 2 biggest driving forces behind abandoned places, at least in America.
When an entire town is centered around something like a factory, and that factory goes out of popularity, whatever they're making, and they close, all the population of that area tends to go elsewhere. So then you have city centers that have shopping districts, theaters that are just empty because there's no population to support it.
Malls were originally invented to replace the idea of a city center for the suburbs, but of course it's less sustainable because it's not a natural organic city center, and they just were not able to weather the storm. Well, it says $999, right?
Oh, it does.
$99.95.
Yeah, I don't think it's working right.
Very frequently, we'll see a place where everything was just left behind, like papers still on the desks, drawers still full of, and it really makes you wonder, like, why this all got left behind. But I think a lot of the times businesses don't realize it's going to be a permanent closure. They could just be thinking temporary closure will try to weather the storm and reopen. That's something active right back there. Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Yeah. Look, all the playland stuff is in here. People ask us all the time, what's the creepiest place we've ever been? But I don't think for either of us that creepy is a good word to describe how we feel in these places. Actually, the more decayed buildings and stuff like the asylums, those are almost sort of melancholy and somber And it's almost like taking a walk through nature, through the forest.
When I'm in an old hospital or a building that, I know is clearly abandoned, it's like very cozy and I feel at home.
There's like a reassuring feeling almost from just seeing the solidity at which these older structures were built with, like all the brick and stone as it decays. You can sort of feel how it's holding up and how this building is monumental almost and going to be here forever. Whereas in the more modern buildings, as they decay, you almost get like an X-ray of how flimsy they were built. It's kind of like a sad experience to see how our old world architecture is being neglected, knowing that this building that has so much value is just going completely unappreciated. We're trying to live in a society with less waste these days, so it seems ironic to me that we are demolishing and tossing aside so many of these older structures that have the bones to hold up for centuries.